Hey guys, welcome to a new video. Like, comment and subscribe if you enjoy. Without any further interruptions, enjoy the What If. Chapter 39. Point of No Return. Backstage in the human auction house, if Soren had hair it would have been standing up on end after what he was feeling looking at the old man that had just yanked his own explosive slave collar off. Johnny, Yosaku. Get the hell away from him now. He's dangerous. If Soren, who was willing to pick a fight with Don Quixote Doflamingo, shouted aloud that someone was dangerous, then everyone in attendance had better take heed of the warning. But just as both swordsmen jumped away, they found that the moment they had turned away to pay momentary attention to Soren, the old man had deposited himself right behind where he seemed to know they would retreat to. Oh please, why do you young people have to be so dramatic about everything? If I wanted to crush you too, the old man said, setting his hands on their shoulders and surprising them at his tight grip, I already would have. He finished with a smile on his face. Taking those words as a threat and having long since learned to never take a smile as a good sign of anything, Johnny quickly unsheathed his sword and swung at the man's head and neck, but by the time he had finished the rotation for his swing the man was gone again. Fast, he gasped out, he's that much faster than me. I don't want to fight you brats. Soren, Johnny, Yosaku, and Byron all looked up on the top of a slave cage with a giant of a man within it to find the old man sitting on top of it, looking down at them, still smirking the whole way. But could you help an old man out and free the last one here? Sorry old man, Soren said, keeping a watchful eye on said old man. Even though he said that he didn't want to fight, if he made a move it probably wouldn't be a very long fight either way. We don't help strangers just like that. Johnny elbowed Soren in the side and whispered to him loudly, what are you talking about? We help strangers all the time. A glare in return from Soren shut him up as steam from his acid burning rose from his skin. Oh, and never mind then. A carefree laugh nearly came from the old man who adjusted the glasses on his face. Well, in that case let's not remain strangers any longer then, shall we? I'll introduce myself first. My name is Silvers Rayleigh. The jaws of all of the present Foxhound pirates dropped and they stared up at Rayleigh with bug eyes, not really believing that they were really looking at one of the most legendary pirates ever in the form of that old man. But the look in his eyes of pure confidence and experience of things none of them could even fathom said otherwise. If there was ever an example of being star-struck, that had to have been the moment that would have been a banner example of such. Byron said, breaking the tense for everyone except Silvers Raleigh, of course. Silence between everyone. Well, this is turning out to be a pretty good day for me. How about the rest you guys? Bang. Asterisk. XXX. On stage of the human auction house. The place had been in a panic with the sudden arrival of Luffy crashing through a wall on a flying fish to interrupt the auction, but in trying to stop Luffy from causing trouble by his rushing the stage, Hatchin wound up being shot in the back by Charlos, who was celebrating at what he had just done, laughing in satisfaction as the other nobles in the building seemed happy that the fishman had been injured so gravely. I got the fishman. I caught my very own fishman. I got it myself, so it's free, right? Absolutely free. Ha ha ha. Luffy had stopped his rampage towards the stage to turn towards the celebrating man, stalking up the stairs towards him slowly until his arm was grabbed by one of Hatchin's. Straw Hat. Don't, he said, weakly as he lost blood steadily. You can't, it was my own fault. You promised us that even if someone was shot right in front of your eyes that you wouldn't fight the Tenryubito. This is what I deserve anyway. I was a pirate, I did evil things. I just never meant for things to turn out this way. I just wanted to make things up to Nami if only a little bit. But I always just screw things up. I'm so sorry. Tears were in his eyes at this point as he pleaded with Luffy not to do anything rash. From the top of the stairs at the entrance point of the building, the doors were thrown open with several Marines flying inside all over the place. Don't let him get any further. He can't be allowed inside. He's a monster. Those cries were cut off when the Marines claiming such were smashed hard enough to be thrown through the walls of the auction area, unconscious and quite battered but alive. A human auction house. From the open doors, Naruto walked in and looked around with a hard expression in his eyes as they panned over the lot of people there for purchasing slaves. How about you try to enslave me? How much would I go for? From the top balcony, Nojiko, Miss Valentine, Murit, and Perona looked over the edge of the railing to see Naruto walking in like a tiger surrounded by hostile prey. Ha! Nojiko said, feeling a bead of sweat on her brow. It's like a standoff or something. As he walked down the stairs, Naruto looked past St. Charlos and over at Luffy, who seemed quite heated, as well as the downed and injured Hatchin. You. Aren't you one of the Arlong pirates from Nami-chan's hometown? Even Uzumaki Naruto too, Hatchin said with quite a bit of effort. Hey, you're Straw Hat's friend too, aren't you? Tell him to Saint. Shut up, you stupid fish. Charlos shouted at Hatchin, cocking his pistol and pointing it at the octopus fishman. You haven't shut your mouth even though I shot you. You're really getting on my nerves. His tirade stopped when Naruto walked past him, ignoring him completely and bumping his shoulder while passing to reach Hatchin's side. What? How could he just ignore someone of his stature? Naruto just kneeled down in front of the fishman that was once his enemy, staring into his eyes until apparently finding what he was looking for and smiling at him. You've been a good guy since all of the stuff that happened back on Kami Island, haven't you? This surprised many people there, including Hatchin himself, who all thought that Naruto was a total ripper of a human being. Hatchin then cringed as Naruto inspected his wound. Whoever shot you sucks, this wouldn't kill an 8-year-old. Uzumaki. Hatchin grimaced in pain as his wound was prodded testingly by a man assumed to be the enemy that destroyed his entire crew of 50+. Why? You should want to kill me more than I want to hurt you. Naruto said calmly and brightly. If you don't, then I don't have a problem with you. And if you do, I don't care, because you're not trying anything on me now, and Luffy seems to trust you. That's all I need. Looking up at Luffy, Naruto nodded stiffly. This guy's going to be fine if we can get someone to him to help. I ain't a healer. A blood vessel appeared on Charlos's head in anger, staring at his shoulder where Naruto had barely come into contact with him, rage in his eyes. Who do you think you are? You filthy insect. You think you can just walk past me? That you can make contact of any kind with me? You bow in my presence, you worm. Beg for forgiveness, he ordered, pointing his pistol at Naruto's back this time. Not even registering the man's presence, Naruto just kept trying to help Hatchin the best he could, using a kunai to dig the bullet out of the wound and getting a groan of pain from Hatchin. Oh come on, you big baby. You're supposed to be a big tough pirate, aren't you? You're just another of those squalid, filthy pirates, Charlos said, cocking the hammer of his pistol back while shakily aiming it with one hand at Naruto. Fine. If you love that inferior creature beside you so much, you can die along with it. From her seat nearby, Vivi had kept silent. This time it wasn't simply her resigning herself to her fate, it was in abject shock of how things were falling apart. Even when trying to take things as they came, things still fell out of control. And there was no way that any of this was going to end well. Her body didn't even give her the option of choosing otherwise. She let out an ear-rending scream. Naruto, no. However, Luffy had walked past Naruto and Hatchin up the stairs towards Charlos, not saying a word, just with a horridly angry expression on his face until he finally got close enough to deliver a good old-fashioned haymaker right to the bloated world noble's face. No stretching necessary, decking him hard enough to smash him through several rows of chairs behind. The entire mass of rich people let out sounds of shock and terror, faces twisted in horror, while Naruto just kept treating Hatchin, his own face devoid a smile altogether. I'm not a pirate, asshole. There wasn't anything funny about that guy to him. Luffy just stood in the same place, cracking his knuckles and looking around, waiting for someone to make something of what he had just done. He had been expressly warned that there would be trouble if he had done anything to a world noble. It was just too bad that when it came down to it he didn't care that much. Sorry everyone. I heard that if you deck one of these guys, a marine admiral's gonna show up with battleships too. Chalros Nisama, the female world noble shouted, standing up at the shock of seeing her older brother get hit. It had simply never happened before. The entire place was in full panic mode at this point, with everyone who had previously thought they were about to buy a slave rushing towards the doors to escape. An older man, dressed the same way as Charlos, only he had gray hair, a beard, and wore sunglasses, stood up and glared hatefully at Luffy. How dare such a lowly peasant like yourself lay even a finger on my son? He shouted at Luffy, pointing his cane, which doubled as a rifle, at the young man. Do you have any idea what will happen to you if you rise against us? Against the descendants of the creators of this world. Before he could fire his weapon though, he found Vivi standing in front of him with her arms outstretched to block. I can't let you do that, Saint Roswald. They're my friends. I don't care. Property like you should not stand in the way of perfect ancestry. Bang. Asterisk. It didn't matter to the man one bit, and it didn't matter that Vivi was in his way as he instantly fired, intent on getting her out of his way one way or another. A puff of smoke enshrouded Vivi as the shot was fired. What the hell are you doing here, Vivi Heim? The smoke cleared to show Naruto shielding Vivi from the shot, his shoulder bleeding from taking the bullet. Vivi's eyes widened and started to quiver as she looked at Naruto. Were you with those guys? He asked her in a slightly strained voice, wincing at the wound in his arm. Get away from my son's new wife, Saint Roswald said again before reloading his weapon to fire again at Naruto. Not fast enough though, since Naruto moved swiftly, snatching the cane rifle out of his hands and smashing him in the face with it, sending blood flying and most definitely breaking quite a few facial bones. Well, to say the least, Naruto definitely popped the resin bubble around his head with that swing, and maybe popped his skull too, because there was definitely a crack heard. Get out of my fucking face. Father. The woman world noble cried in alarm as the man's body flew across the auditorium and smacked into the wall with an echoing audible thud, falling to crash through the seats in that part of the human auction house as well. Her eyes turned angrily towards Naruto, who tossed the cane away, its use no longer necessary. She gnashed her teeth together before loudly barking an order, summon the Marines and have them send an admiral. This will not stand. You and all of yours will die here. Sorry, Naruto said, not sounding very sorry at all about what he had just done, but nobody shoots at my princess. He then turned his gaze of scrutiny back to Vivi, who shirked slightly. Who needs to tell me just what she was doing here away from the whole crew, and just what that guy meant by saying she was that noble guy's new wife? Before Vivi could try and explain anything, Miss Valentine drifted down with her umbrella from the balcony with the other Foxhound pirate women holding onto her and landed right by them all. Don't be mad at Vivi, sweetie. If she hadn't gone with that guy, there would have been big trouble for us. She then looked around and laughed quite a bit, but there's big trouble anyway, so that's a moot point. In the middle of this conversation, the rest of the Straw Hat crew had arrived and happened to be fighting through the guards of the world nobles while people were scrambling to escape. Apparently this wasn't enough of an issue to stir Naruto or any of the girls, even though Luffy's crew now seemed to have a living skeleton with an afro as a member. A sigh came from Naruto before he locked eyes with Vivi and pointed intently at her. Don't ever do anything like that again. Stop trying to do stuff to protect us on your own. That's what teams are for in the first place, so that no one has to do anything like that. He had more of a lecture set and ready even in the calamity around them, but he was cut off when Vivi threw herself at him and hugged him, crying into his flak jacket. "Aw geez, don't cry. I'm not really mad at you, it's just..." "It's not that," Vivi interrupted, with a sniffle. "I thought I was really going to have to go with that man. Being a princess doesn't mean anything to a world noble. You still belong to my brother." The female world noble said, "This little incident isn't going to change that. As a matter of fact, this all just made it worse for you for when you're obtained once more. And that won't take long. The admiral that is sent will turn this island upside down to take down you and that other crew of fools." The back wall on the stage then started coming down in a bubbling, melting mess until enough of it had been destroyed for the male members of the Foxhound pirates to walk out from behind with Byron still with them. "Old man Rayleigh, you're definitely coughing up some of that money you stole from this place to us. We did the real legwork here. We could fight over it if you'd like," Rayleigh replied, getting a quick shake of heads from the lot of them that elicited a loud laugh from him. "That's what I figured, still got it. Crazy old bastard," Johnny mumbled before seeing that they were standing right by a prison for the mermaid Kimi, and his eyes widened behind his sunglasses. "Awesome. Mermaid." Without another bit of prompting, Johnny quick drew his sword and slashed the top of the watery prison off, more or less freeing her except for the slave collar. "Okay Soren, do the rest so we can talk to a real-life mermaid. This is a great day." Before Soren could move forward to try and rid the mermaid of the collar his way, Rayleigh got there first and grabbed a hold of the collar, getting everyone that was paying attention to recoil in shock. Maybe that guy could take an explosion like what that collar would produce, but that mermaid didn't look even close to being tough enough to survive it. It was a moot point though, as Rayleigh ripped the collar off with absurd speed and threw it at some of the many armored guards in the room, causing it to explode on them instead. How productive. Seeming to not believe what he had done was impressive or was even a big deal at all, Rayleigh looked around the room until his gaze stopped on Luffy and a smirk came over his face. "Ah, I've been waiting quite a while to meet you, Monkey D. Luffy, you certainly have a knack for finding yourself in trouble." With her bonds cast off, a few of Luffy's crew members ran down fighting their way through the soldiers to try and reach Kimi and help her out of her predicament. "Soren, Johnny, Yosaku, get your asses over here now," Naruto shouted across the room, getting all three men to shrug before they started heading towards him. Soren came to a stop though when he heard something that had his ears burning. Damn it, stop those pirates. A man with long silver hair, loud gaudy clothes, a colorful top hat, star sunglasses, and a thick mustache shouted over the house microphone. The MC for the whole slave auctioning process shouted desperately, "That mermaid sold for 500 million. Mr. Doflamingo's shop has a reputation to keep up." He then stopped yelling when he felt a shadow of death standing behind him and turned to find Soren standing in front of him. "So this is Doflamingo's place, is it?" he asked in a threatening manner with an evil grin on his face. "Well, I think he's going to want to know all about these developments, don't you? I'd sure like to if I were him." Soren grabbed the man by the back of his neck like a disobedient puppy. "Let's call him." He then turned towards Naruto and the others and yelled towards them, "You guys get out of here, I'll catch up." The minute he heard the name of Doflamingo he was locked in on that and nothing else. Even the panic that Sabayati Archipelago was about to be thrown into didn't matter to him as he seemed to walk with the man to the back where his office in a Den Mushi was. "Soren," Naruto yelled at him again, only getting flipped off for his trouble. "Damn it. There are like 150 night guards blocking the way out. You get your ass back here and make a new exit for everybody," he shouted, ducking out of the way of a halberd swing to abusively kick his armored attacker away. "Kami, I hate armor." He took another guard's helmet right off after they missed a sword swing and headbutted the man right in the face, knocking him out. Yosaku could cut through metal. Naruto was skilled and enough of a juggernaut that armor didn't really matter in the end, and Miss Valentine could generate more than enough concussive force to turn armor into expensive tin bodysuits, but the others weren't aptly suited to trying to best a large group of knights. Byron simply avoided the attacks of the knights with what seemed to be a practiced grace of his footwork, almost like a dance of nobility. "Naruto-sama, the rest of the slaves in the back have been freed," he said calmly as he leaned out of the way of a sword strike and watched Naruto cover him by blasting the knight with a Rasengan. "Cool," Naruto said, pulling Nojiko out of the way of another attack from the persistent knights, but it served to be unnecessary to really assist her in the end when she used her shotgun to produce a harsh blast of wind that sent the guard flailing away. "Can we tear this place down and leave now?" His question was cut off when a still pressurized feeling filled the entire building, getting everyone to stop fighting. What the hell? It felt like raw killing intent just without the feeling of certain death behind it. It was strong enough to utterly paralyze Vivi and force the entirety of the armored guard unconscious. Murat also fell victim to succumbing to the feeling, fainting on her feet only to be caught and kept from hitting the ground. Her eyes fluttered open and a blush appeared on her face as she saw who her savior was. "Oh. High Law." The laid-back pirate and surgeon gave Murat a calm smile and set her back on her feet, still holding on to her hands. "Hey there, beautiful. Your captain needs to get the hell out of here now like my crew is. Whatever admiral comes here is going to tear this place up. No pirate with a bounty is really safe for this one." "I'm not a pirate, damn it." Murat palmed her face at Naruto's boisterous cry that was seemingly instinctive at this point. "Yeah, Naruto-sama isn't a pirate, but I don't think that matters. Thank you for caring. I don't really care about your crew, to be honest," Law stated bluntly, getting the other foxhound pirate women to wonder why in the hell Murat seemed to be swooning over the guy. "But you're cute, and a doctor has to be pretty tough or lucky to get this far on the Grand Line, trust me. It's impressive." "Hey, let go of my beloved," Yosaku shouted at Law, sprinting up to him with Kibikirabucho on his shoulder. "You can't touch Murat like that." "I can't even touch Murat like that." "What the hell, man?" Law just kept his smirk on his face as Murat addressed the power swordsman. "Well, he's got my permission too. Law's just cute, and he's cool. And well, you're not," she said reluctantly. That was like a shot to the heart for Yosaku, who dropped to his knees with a stricken look on his face. Murat fought the urge to pet him like a dog as that would have made things worse. Law felt the need to comment though, "Keep your head up, man. It'll be all right." Looking at the doors, Law saw a few members of his crew beckoning him to leave. "I'll see you around sometime. Maybe in the new world," he asked Murat, getting a shy nod from her before he ran off. In Yosaku's mind there was a little something new going on though. Got to kick that guy's ass eventually, he thought to himself, as beating Zoro to measure his worth as a swordsman was no longer his top goal in mind. True love is as rocky as the roughest shore. And nothing worth earning is easy. However, in the middle of his heroic inner monologue, he was yanked to his feet by Naruto and slapped once to get him out of his trance. "Oi. Come on. Stop spacing out and let's roll. We've been in here for too long and this place is totally surrounded." The rest of our crew, the Straw Hats, the Kid Pirates, Law's Heart Pirates, and that old-ass man with the weird killing intent already went outside. The slap woke Yosaku back up and he glared at Naruto with a red handprint on the side of his face. "Well, why didn't you get me up sooner? What were you waiting here for then?" He noticed that Naruto had strange, ripple pattern eyes and orange pigment around them. "Oh. That. Come to think of it, that slap did hurt a hell of a lot more than it should have for as slow as it was going. Why? This," Naruto said, as he clapped his hands together and held them in place. "Now go catch up. I'm gonna be here for a while." Chibaku Tensei, heavenly body bursting from the earth. XXX. Meanwhile, with Soren, office of the human auction house. Mr. Doflamingo, this is Disco. The timid owner of the human auction house said into the receiver of the Den Den Mushi in a quiet voice. "Listen, there's been some problems here and I was just wondering, can you come over to maybe try and help out?" Laughter came from over the line before Doflamingo spoke back up. "No, I don't think I will, come to think of it. I'm so tired with the slave trading business, it's so boring. So from now on your problems are your problems. Ta-ta Disco-kun." The entire building began to shake as Disco's jaw dropped. "You can't be serious. You're just going to let us alone here? I'll be killed. There's a lunatic right here with." He was then promptly knocked unconscious via having his head shoved forward through a wall by Soren from behind. "TCH. Useless," Soren said to himself as he then took the receiver and spoke into it. "Hello Doflamingo. So I hear you aren't dropping in to let me turn your organs into a fine liquid. That's disappointing. Oh, it's Acid Boy. Well, sorry, I've got something more interesting than that passé slave house to worry about these days. Something that's far more interesting than you two. And it's not even close. Fufufufufu. Well, maybe we can meet up for this interesting thing," Soren said, flexing out a fist and wishing that Doflamingo was right in front of him to punch right in the mouth or worse. "I like to party, so let me drop in on this too. Is there alcohol? Oh, you don't seem to be the warfaring type. This one's way over your head, you bald baby chick. But hey, if you feel like stepping in between a war between the Shichibukai, the Marines, and the Whitebeard Pirates, then be my guest." He started cackling again as Soren's face was one of pure astonishment and disbelief. "That's all the answer I need from you right there. Try again when you get a little more heart, kid." The conversation ended with Doflamingo hanging up on his end of the line and Soren just standing there frozen by what he had just heard. A war between those three. No way, man. That's just. He shook his head as the shaking of the building gave way to it tearing away all around him, starting from the ceiling up and floating into the sky over their head. "Oh, and this just keeps on getting worse," he said as he ran off to get back to the ship, not knowing that his crew was still pretty close. XXX. With Foxhound Pirates. Grove 15 lawless area. "This is ridiculous," Perona cried out, using her negative ghosts to sap the fighting spirit out of multiple Marines that had tried to attack her along with the other Foxhound Pirates. "I am not with them. I'm a prisoner," she argued, still fighting back despite her claims to be innocent in all of this. She was a Shichibukai's crewmate. Even though she wasn't famous outside of Thriller Bark, her word had to mean something, didn't it? "Not really." "Yeah, because you sure seem like one right now," Nojiko sarcastically remarked from atop Funkfried along with Murat, clearing the way off in the distance with her ranged rifle before they ever got that far. "Come on, how much further is it to Grove 54? This entire day had just frazzled her nerves entirely. She had never even gotten to say hello to her sister Nami or anything since everything broke down so quickly. "It's this way," Johnny shouted before being grabbed from behind by Yosaku. "What's the big idea?" he asked, stopping long enough to quickly unsheath his sword and cut down a few Marines that had strayed too close to try and take him down. Yosaku used his massive cleaver sword and smashed through his end of a bridge leading to their grove to cut the pursuing Marine force off from chasing them. "You're going the wrong way, jackass." "It's that way," he shouted, pointing in a completely different direction. "This way, this way." "No, it's that way, I'm sure of it." Vivi palmed her face while Byron, who was still with the lot of them, looked over at the two arguing swordsmen who were yelling at each other and fighting Marines simultaneously. "Does this happen too terribly often?" he asked, wondering just what the dynamic of these people happened to be. "Yes, sadly," replied the blue-haired desert-dwelling princess. "So they were lost. That was just great. It wasn't like they could just stop and ask for directions either." The whole archipelago was in an uproar, and quite personally Vivi wanted to put as much distance as she could between herself and that place. "Hey!" Vivi called out when she saw that Johnny and Yosaku were beginning to trade sword strikes between themselves while they kept arguing over the direction. "Stop fighting each other." She ran over and punched them both in the head. "I am not having a good week. Be stupid some other time." Murid hopped down from Funkfried and moved to Vivi's side to put a calming hand on the shoulder of the seething princess who had been on quite an emotional roller coaster that day. "Whoa honey, calm down, easy. It's okay. Deep breaths." She then pointed east. "That's the way, I remember. So can we get going already before something else bad happens?" "I agree," Byron said, eyes looking around for any more advancing Marines that may have tried to prevent them from moving forward. His statement got Corona to stop fuming about the lack of respect or recognition from the Marines that were supposed to be Shichibukai allies in order to pay attention to him. "Wait, you're actually coming with these people, weird guy? Why, you don't even know them?" Byron nodded in agreement, but his face was one of poise and honor. "Maybe so, but these people freed me from my bonds and a fate worse than death. Thanks to them I can freely roam the seas again, so why wouldn't I choose to go with them if they would have me?" He gave a flourish of a bow to the women of the crew that were present. "I request a place on your crew if at all possible." "Wow, how old-fashioned. XXX. With Soren. Grove 7 bridge to shipping area. Because one wasn't enough the last time," Soren said to himself. The reason being that there were 2 Bartholomew Kuma lookalikes on the bridge, more or less keeping it on lockdown. The last time he had seen more than one Bartholomew Kuma, it was a stupid cyborg that nearly killed him, and now there were 2, and he had no backup. How many of these stupid things exist? Soren, looking up at the sky and the canopy of the massive trees that comprised Sabayati Archipelago, Soren saw Miss Valentine drift down from the sky on her umbrella. "Valentine. What the hell, aren't you with the others?" "I was with Naruto when he made his huge ball of debris out of the human auction house. I saw you run this way away from everyone else and I thought, hey, who would probably need my help the most?" Miss Valentine said, closing her umbrella up and pointing it at the 2 pacifista cyborgs in front of them. "Or do you want to try this by yourself?" On one hand, his pride and backward sense of chivalry towards women despite their strength told him to fight it out on his own, but the fact that the last time he fought a pacifista he was mercilessly ragdolled about won out in the end, and he wordlessly and reluctantly nodded his agreement to Miss Valentine's assistance. The eyes of the pair of pacifista began to glow as they locked onto the pair. "Human albatross Miss Valentine, bounty 83 million belly. The plague, Soren, bounty 251 million belly." Miss Valentine scoffed, but never lost her smile despite her apparent annoyance. "I swear I hate that stupid nickname," she said before smacking her umbrella into her open palm in preparation for the coming fight. "You ready?" Instead of getting an immediate answer from her current partner, the pacifista charged laser blasts from their hands and fired them at the 2 pirates who used their respective speed techniques to evade, Soren's Soru and Miss Valentine's Heinho. "I don't think it matters if I'm ready or not," Soren shouted before getting in close, dodging extra laser blasts as he did so. "Hey, I'm faster this time and I've got all kinds of other moves too. Maybe I won't be half past dead when this one's over," he thought to himself, deciding to fully engage in the battle at hand for better or for worse. "I hate this crew." "Oh, no you don't. Don't be such a liar." You love us, Miss Valentine said in a contradictory manner, dodging a laser blast with a high jump before evading another one by quickly putting on a lot of weight to fall down faster. While Miss Valentine was focusing on her evasion techniques, Soren didn't want to get bogged down in a long fight at a time like that. Using one of his sharp canine teeth, he cut a deep gash from his shoulder down to his hand, allowing his own blood to coat the entire limb before the sizzling life fluid with acidic properties quickly cauterized his own wound. I've got to go for the knockout right now before this dries. It was the only thing he could think of that could get through the metal that his regular acid couldn't get through the last time around. He had to be on his game and as fast as possible, or else he was going to pay for attempting a close-range direct attack on this thing. Then again, that was the only way he knew how to fight other than launching distance attacks, and none of those would work in this case. Ebi no kai. Ebi no deba, rot blood, rot knife. A high-speed rush from the first mate of the Foxhound crew was used preemptively the moment he saw the telltale flash of another laser blast charging up. The blast missed him and Soren buried his knife-edged hand right through the neck of the pacifista, surprised that the things actually bled when he decapitated it via his special attack. As he watched the head of the pacifista fly through the air and the body of the massive thing fall to the ground, Soren blinked in surprise. He knew his blood was his strongest acid despite the fact that he didn't have much to use freely due to the anemia his devil fruit power gave him, but it just let him drive his hand and arm into metal like it was a lump of cold butter. Whoa. He said to himself, the loss of blood from his previously grievous wound getting to him as he stumbled a bit. I did it. Without needing a doctor afterwards. Miss Valentine laughed as she wound up getting close to one of the pacifista. These things fight poorly, they're just really powerful and durable. She commented, using her umbrella to smash one in the leg with the weight behind it, sweeping it to the ground where she decided to finish with one move. Miss Valentine lifted one of her legs high above her head before dropping it heel first in a precision axe kick. Hisatsu, 5,000 kilo Hisaki no Ono, sure kill, 5,000 kilogram axe's edge. The kick smashed the entire head of the pacifista, destroying the cyborg with the scary massive amount of weight behind the attack crushing its cranium and part of the ground underneath it, forming a forceful crater. All you need is some serious sure kill power to beat one. I think a minimum of 5,000 kilograms dropping onto the head is enough, don't you? Miss Valentine concluded with a bright smile and a laugh, undermining how dark that would have been if it had been an actual person instead of a cyborg. Even then it still bled. Most people can't put together that kind of force though, even with a cannon. Her powers were kind of cheating in that kind of instance, but it wasn't her fault she had trained on how to use them, it was Naruto's fault. Soren took his bandana from off of his head and wrapped it tightly around his bicep where his self-inflicted gash had been the worst to keep it from breaking back open while they ran. Cool. So let's get going already, I'm dizzy. Poor anemic psychopath. Shut up Valentine. XXX. With Naruto, remnants of Grove 1. Standing on the top of his own massive airborne ball of random debris that in reality wasn't so random, Naruto was paying attention to every bit of material comprising the ball. His reason for using Chibaku Tensei was to take in all of the cannons and other heavy arms that the Marines had surrounded the human auction house Grove with. It was only a bonus really that he could use it for a pretty scary attack to boot. Just seeing the floating body of material sent the Marine grunts running for the hills even though there weren't any hills, because Naruto had simultaneously disarmed them of anything that could reach him with the use of his jutsu. It was like fighting something inhuman. The entire top stalk and trunk of the Grove tree had to go due to the powerful pull of the technique, ripping it from its ground like roots above the water. Sorry tree, but some evil stuff happened on you and I can't let that stand. Naruto said, apologizing to what he believed to be quite an amazing bit of nature, the Urukiman groves that comprised the landmark town. Now all he had to do was find something to throw it at. The stupid tree canopies kept him from seeing what he needed to in the multiple groves. So he didn't see the multiple volleys of light blasts that pulverized the Chibaku Tensei ball out of the air. And due to the all-attracting properties of the jutsu, each one of them hit the compressed ball and forced it to fall apart from the force. Naruto fell back to the ground, using the debris and jumping off of the bits and pieces on the way down to keep his falling speed low for safety until he could reach the trunk of another Urukiman tree to slide down the trunk. Upon landing he stood in the middle of the falling rifles, cannons, pieces of building, chunks of tree, and other random things that were coming down through the top of the tree leaves. Impressive as always. In the dust of the currently catastrophically embattled area, a tall figure walked through the shroud, making himself and his loud striped yellow suit known. You sure don't know much how to hold back at times like this, Uzumaki Naruto. Crap. Well, logic said that it wasn't going to be Aokiji that was sent. After what had occurred at Eni's lobby, he was probably still getting his butt chewed out about that, and Naruto didn't know the other admiral, so why wouldn't it be Kizaru that was sent? The same trick he pulled in Alabasta wasn't going to work twice. But maybe he didn't even have to try anything. Bye monkey boy, Naruto said, waving at Kizaru before vanishing in a yellow flash. As things still fell from the sky, Kizaru only stared at the place where Naruto had just been standing moments before. He shot the bastard's huge floating ball of crud out of the air and he just disappeared on him. I almost forgot how annoying you were. You won't get away no matter how fast you think you are. Kuma let the Straw Hat Pirates escape with his technique to transport them away. He wasn't going to let the biggest bounty on the island escape as well since he fought to a draw with Silver's Rayleigh. Even if Naruto could teleport himself too, his underlings couldn't. They had a ship, and the marine battleships dispatched to Sabayati Archipelago were still keeping the north and east side of the place on watch. So all he had to do was wait for them to try and leave, and there he'd have his target in a fix. And with that in mind, he moved in a series of flashes of light towards the closest warship. XXX. On board the natural disaster, the door to the main room of the ship was thrust open with Naruto running outside onto the deck. To his relief, the crew were already moving around, preparing for the worst as the ship was slowly moving through the groves trying to leave Sabayati Archipelago, and the open ocean was in sight. Did we get away? Naruto asked aloud before realizing that there was no seafaring battle going on, getting him to sigh in relief. Yes, we got away. Cool. He quickly made his way to the helm where Vivi, who had recently taken on the responsibility of steering the ship in his absence, was manning the wheel. Vivi Heim. I'm sorry, Vivi said preemptively, trying to keep Naruto from saying what she already expected him to. I was scared. I did it to try and keep the worst from happening to you guys, but it wound up happening anyway. She finished flatly. Once again she had sorely underestimated how far south things could go with her friends, all of them. Naruto sighed and sat down on the bench beside Vivi, who was standing up to see better while steering. Even if Luffy hadn't knocked that guy's block off for whatever reason he did it the minute I found out that you'd done something as stupid as you did, I would have just taken you back anyway. He grabbed Vivi's hand and prompted her to sit down next to him so that she would listen for certain. If it had been you instead of Robin-chan that had been in her position at Eni's lobby, I would have been the first one kicking that place's gates down to get you out. Against these people, that's really dumb. You can't win a war against the people who created the world government. That's a war with the entire world itself. I've always been kind of dumb. Some things you don't grow out of. That's self-sacrificial and stupid. Worry about yourself sometime. Apparently in Alabasta, Vivi had been more than willing to give up her life to protect her country from crocodile and baroque works. Well, here she was willing to lose her freedom so that the rest of the crew didn't suffer the wrath of the world nobles. She was brave, but she liked to take her problems onto her own shoulders too much. Naruto was sort of the opposite. He seemed to take on the problems of others too much. He still hadn't grown up out of that even after decades of it. Always trying to be a problem solver. You should listen to your own advice too, you know. Naruto said in response, getting Vivi to roll her eyes. I know you're tough, but just remember, as long as you're with us you don't have to do things by yourself. And even when you go home, if Alabasta needs help that you can't fix on your own, maybe we can help you out. I'll always be one move away. When I get more special, can I? All right. Vivi nodded, smiling at that thought with some reddening of her cheeks. She had heard that much before, from Luffy and his crew as well. But to know that eventually if she needed the help it would be one quick throw of a weapon away, it made her feel rather safe, even though the person assuring her of this fact was probably the least safe person alive. Hey, dumb blonde captain, I need you to come with me to the wading pool to check something out. I think you need to see it. Grumbling at being called dumb blonde captain by Polly and his full-on rudeness, Naruto got up to head back inside and checked the hold of the ship in the location at the back where he was requested to go. Yeah. I'm on the way, you jerk. You can call me by my name, you know. Watching him leave for a moment before he disappeared inside from her sight, Vivi went right back to steering the ship when she saw Nojiko walk in front of her and the wheel, leaning on the front of it with a sly smirk on her face. With a sniper like me, I see everything, you know. You and our fearless captain are getting kind of close, aren't you? What are you saying, Nojiko? I can't feel like that about a pirate, even one like Naruto. I'm a princess of a nation of the world government. Vivi defended with a huff at Nojiko's implication, pausing for a moment when they both heard a loud shout from the inside that sounded like, I'm not a pirate. Before she continued, I'm not like the rest of you. You and Miss Valentine can do this forever, I can't. Eventually I have to go home and move on from all of this, no matter how much fun it is. Nojiko said in a disbelieving tone of voice before poking Vivi right in the middle of her forehead. Whatever you say, but you know you don't believe that. She then turned towards the front of the ship to keep looking out for trouble. Geez, you act like we haven't seen like 3 other kingdoms with ties to pirates before. Vivi stuck her tongue out at Nojiko behind her back and turned her attention back to keeping the ship on track to get away from Sabayati Archipelago as soon as possible until she heard a very loud expletive from Soren's position in the crow's nest. What's the matter? Oh shit, Nojiko said with a frown on her face as she saw the source of Soren's vulgar outburst. Yeah, there's a warship trying to head us off at the pass. Failure was apparently not an option if they were actually pursuing them with one lone ship. Either that or they didn't know that it was the natural disaster that they were about to face off with. Cannons. Ready. Both Johnny and Yosaku chimed in unison as they had them loaded and turned in the proper direction, Nojiko moving between them, adjusting them to make sure they really were ready to fire. Come on, new guy, lend us a hand here. As requested, Byron was manning the heaviest cannon, prepared to fire that one first and foremost. This might not be the best time to bring this up, but I can't say how good it feels to be out and doing this again. Freedom certainly was sweet, and if he were caught he'd be sent right back to the people that had bought him. That was not a choice as far as he was concerned. They fired a shot. Nojiko shouted after hearing the blast of a cannon from the enemy ship, but there's no way their guns are in range of us if we can't even hit them yet. Was it a warning shot? It didn't seem likely. Whatever, Vivi, go around wide. It's just the one ship. We don't have to fight it. It won't catch us if we can just get our back to it. XXX. On board the marine ship. We can't hit them from this range, sir. A marine captain said, saluting Kizaru, who was standing casually with his hands in his pockets. I'm sorry, but we need to risk getting closer to their ship. He knew that much was dangerous as the natural disaster ship was vicious in close quarters and could pick up speed suddenly among other things. Yeah, that's okay. Kizaru replied smoothly before standing on the top of the cannon that had just fired. He made a flippant, nonchalant hand gesture as he looked out towards the Foxhound pirate ship, reload it and fire again. This is good enough actually. Keep moving toward it though. I'll need you there to pick me back up. According to Kizaru's orders, the cannon was reloaded and quickly fired, sending a cannonball into the air that Kizaru timed with his light powers to wind up standing on the ball as it flew through the air. From there right before the cannonball began descending, Kizaru jumped off, hanging in the air over the ship before landing atop one of the tree-like masts. You know, I have to say that this ship is interesting. He took a step off of the mast and started to fall before turning his body to light and flashing his way to the deck where he reappeared, looking around down there as well. Grass on the deck too. Strange. Every single member of the crew froze in place with looks of horror on their faces. There was an admiral, right there on their ship. Close enough to see, close enough to hear, almost close enough to touch. Though there were 7 of them and 1 of him, not a single one of the rogue crew dared to move to try and take advantage of it. And Kizaru seemingly didn't have any problems with that as he just stood there observing them all, another rookie crew. But I don't see either of your top 2. That's kind of a letdown. Did I make a mistake in believing that Uzumaki would arrive here by now? What are we going to do now? Nojiko thought to herself. She didn't dare risk reaching for one of her guns. Not that she wasn't confident in her quick draw, but not against an admiral. At the moment, Her raw untrained precognitive haki was doing nothing but flashing sights of their own violent demises in front of her eyes if she tried any kind of move. Nothing about this is going to end well. There's no move to make. The thing about being afraid is, your brain will at times work down to a reaction that isn't always the best course of action to take. Usually this manifests itself as an act of overt aggression in the hopes that you'll catch the source of your fear off guard and enable an opportunity that you otherwise wouldn't have had. This usually occurs in the minds of the simpler creatures of the world when they find themselves seemingly cornered. Which would explain why Johnny and Yosaku took the initiative to attempt to attack, with the latter following up on the former's quick draw slash that cut right through Kizaru's waist. Of course he simply reverted to light before reforming himself as if he were never injured at all. Feeling their swords pass through nothing, Johnny and Yosaku didn't even have the time for true panic to set in before Johnny was kicked in the face hard enough to be sent flying into the mast where he peeled off of it like a bug and fell to the deck. Almost instinctively at having such a threat still right in front of him, Yosaku drove his Kubikiraboucho into the ground and planned to hide behind the flat of his blade to block any other attack from Kizaru, but that was not enough, as a thin beam of light passed through his body from the side, all the way through, dropping him to his knees with a desperate gasp. How can he? Yosaku thought to himself as he turned his head to the side and saw Kizaru, still aiming his index finger right at him. How can someone be that fast? Down boy, Kizaru said mockingly towards his wounded quarry, preparing to finish the job with similar attack until a series of shots rang out and bullets passed through his body with specks of light representing where he should have been wounded. Well, you certainly don't give up, do you? And then a barrage of acidic projectiles flew through his body much in the same manner. Acid. What a scary power, he said calmly and cheerfully. A shadow appeared above him and from the sky Miss Valentine dropped down with her umbrella at the ready to smash Kizaru. He might use a logia fruit like crocodile, but with this it doesn't matter. I can still hit him. Too slow, Kizaru said disappointedly, throwing a jumping kick into the air that fired off a laser blast that hit the falling and mostly vulnerable woman, causing an explosion and forcing her to fall right back onto the deck, her attack thwarted, with an opening like that. There was no way I was going to let you finish whatever you had planned. Miss Valentine let out a cough before laughing weakly, trying to get back up with little success. That blast hit her while she was wide open with nowhere to go, and the fall to the deck wasn't exactly gentle either. Not my best idea, but I couldn't let you kill Yosaku like that. So now you'll both die instead? Kizaru asked, ignoring the fact that Soren was skulking and lurking around somewhere looking for an opening. He would never find one that could actually harm him, so it didn't matter. You're right, that idea wasn't that smart, at all. He looked around for anyone else on the ship only to see a rather rattled Vivi still manning the helm. Ah, Nefertari Vivi. I'm going to need you to come with me. Vivi didn't move and just shook her head slowly. No. Well, I'll just finish up here and take you anyway. There are some concerns that we have with your actions over the past year that maybe you can clear up for us. Say, where is the other woman? The one with the guns. Once again, it was of no consequence since Nojiko couldn't harm him with her weapons, but losing sight of one of the enemy members was a little embarrassing. That is of no importance to you, Admiral Kizaru. I will gladly be your opponent instead. The ragged-looking tagalong of the crew, Byron, stepped into the space between Kizaru on the deck and Vivi at the front of the ship where she was still steering. The ever-present calm smile of Kizaru didn't change a bit. And you would be? I didn't know that this crew had any new people on it at all. I owe these people a debt that I cannot repay if you kill or capture them. Byron said, casting his dirty black jacket aside to leave him in his tattered white ruffled shirt as he rolled his sleeves up to his elbows in preparation for a fight. And you won't capture me either. I would rather die than go back. As you wish then, Kizaru said as calmly as ever, raising an eyebrow in interest as he saw Byron's hair begin to grow out wider and down his back like a mane. Another devil fruit user. These people just seem to get stranger and stranger all the time. A barrage of quills then flew through his body. They don't seem to get much smarter though. I knew that wouldn't work, Byron said, his hair standing up on end from the position that they had fired the hair follicles from, but I just had to try anyway. Very well then. At this point he was merely stalling for Nojiko to get to whatever she ran off inside of the ship for. You think my devil fruit is interesting? I'll show you the power of the KK no Mi hair fruit. Even if Byron fought, it wouldn't do any good. He beat everyone else that tried and direct attacks weren't hurting him at all. How is anyone supposed to beat a Logia user like this? How did Naruto live through this? Before they could start fighting though, the deck right by the steering wheel and Vivi burst open with Naruto landing there. The spot had been right beneath his room on the ship, so he could ruin it if he wanted to. It was the second time that someone broke through it, so why not him this time? Hi, Naruto said, Rinnegan eyes locked firmly on Kizaru. That was certainly the quietest fight with someone that strong that had ever happened on the natural disaster. Training was usually louder than that battle had been. Hello, Kizaru replied amicably before lifting his leg and shooting a laser blast at Naruto with a kick. With the reflexes given to him in Sage mode, Naruto disappeared in a yellow flash, forcing the blast to miss and hit the waters of the ocean a ways away instead of hitting him. He then hopped back out of the hole in the deck, having used Hiraishin to quickly avoid the move. So Kizaru was still as fast as ever. What a pain. Vivi Heim, keep steering the ship, Naruto told her, setting a hand on her shoulder as a form of reassurance that everything was going to be okay. Murit's on her way to make sure everyone that got hurt is going to be alright. As he said that, his awareness while in Sage mode allowed him to pull Vivi down with him to duck a kick from Kizaru aimed at him. This is too dangerous to fight on the ship. He drew a Hiraishin kunai and threw it into the skies above the ocean, grabbing the weapon as his descent began only for Kizaru to appear in the air with him. The Admiral delivered a speedy kick once he saw Naruto immediately retaliate to his presence with a punch that had them clash in midair. Oh, so you can keep pace a little better this time, Kizaru said in amusement from behind his gold-tinted sunglasses. Good to see that you could learn something new. And you didn't just jump right at me this time at light speed. Naruto replied in turn with determination in his gaze. I was hoping I could time you and reflect you away again like the last time. When Kizaru had attacked him by Vivi, he had merely picked a spot right by Naruto on the deck of the ship and stopped short instead of attacking him directly. No such luck, I'm afraid. I thought so. With that, the two pushed away from each other and seemed to vanish in the air. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, as well as checking out the author on fanfiction.net.